All right, good evening, everybody. Anybody who's out there live watching. My name is Sean Erriger. I am a social work blogger and tweeter. I blog at stuckonsocialwork.wordpress.com. You can also find me on Twitter at stuckonsw. I'm here with Caroline. Caroline, I don't know if I actually asked you your last name or if you even want that to be known.
I generally don't use it in this case.
Okay. Okay, that's fair enough. This is Caroline from Throwback Diary. I ran into Caroline on social media. Her project, Throwback Diary, really intrigued me. I thought it was really interesting. Um, so I was thinking about featuring it on my blog, and I had some questions about it. But rather than do a Q&A blog, I thought it'd be fun to do an interview.
Yes, as
So
long as the technology behaves, will be great.
yes, yeah. So hopefully the technology will cooperate with us, Caroline. But so why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about the Throwback Diary?
Sure. Throwback Diary is an ongoing community art project. It exists as a blog. I update it once a week, and I present a video of me reading a diary entry of mine from somewhere in the past of diary keeping. And it's slowly telling the story of my life. It's kind of a memoir developing in real time. But more than that, it's also turning into a larger community. I'm having people from all over the world send me their own diary entries and responses to mine, and we're kind of learning from each other and sharing our lives.
Yeah, that's the thing I thought was kind of neat about it. Is that it's kind of got this interactive quality. There's the video, and then I noticed that I was looking at it, and almost like you had the a place for you people to leave messages if they wanted to via what is that, like Skype or
There are
just a
lots of
voicemail or
there are several options. I tell everyone to go to the website itself, which is throwbackdiary.com. There is a share link, which says all the ways that you can share. I have a voicemail number where you can at numbers 929-320-0024. You can send photographs or readings of your own to submissions at Throwback Diary, and they all get featured on the website. And I think that's really the most exciting part of this whole project. And there's a quote I love by a photographer that says, affect each other by being open enough to make each other feel less alienated. And I think that's what sharing really honest moments of our lives can do, is take those things that feel so isolating, when you're on your own, and feel less alienated by realizing there's this very large community, that the stuff of life is so incredibly common, as heavy as it can be in any moment to connect to someone maybe in another country, or another age, or another gender, or what have you. Kind of realize how universal it all is.
yeah, I mean that's just the wonderful thing about social media, and you've kind of taken it and tried to create a community around that, which is great. We need more community, and that sense of community is really good too. Yeah, so I guess my question was: is you started the diary when you were what, 9 years old? Is that
I
what you
got my
said?
first diary with my grandmother when I was 9 years old, and
Okay.
yeah, I made it. I remember making a New Year's resolution one year that I would write in the diary. And that was when, I guess I was 9.5.
Okay. And you've
And it stuck. It's
okay.
the one resolution that stuck.
Okay, cool. So you've been doing that for pretty much all your life, right? Or did you pretty much diary every day, kind of
Yeah,
religiously,
yeah.
or?
There are some years where I wrote every single day of the year. I don't necessarily anymore when something moves me. But it truly is my transition into adulthood. My first date is diary. Problems with my parents as a teenager are in my diary. It's kind of turning into this tremendous resource as far as being able to empathize with all these various points in life, as well as my adulthood. And everyone's adulthood gets a little topsy-turvy at some times. There are health issues, there's mental health issues, there's successes and failures, and yeah, I have this trove of material that is me.
Cool. Yeah. So at what point you're kind of diarying all along, but at what point what kind of propelled you to create the website and try to develop the community and things like that? What kind of made you move in that direction?
Well, I've been wondering really what it's all for. Like why, aside from it just being a habit at this point, why I continue to write and what that's going to mean for anyone, and where do these books go? I have 21 books, full of handwriting, full of my life, and I have wondered if I will these to someone. Do I throw them away? Do I try to photograph documentation of them, books around? And I just decided that I wanted to actually make some. And it wasn't until I realized there could be kind of a peer-to-peer aspect of it that kind of propelled me into, yes, these are worth opening up and sharing. Not that my life is so special, it's not, but to just encourage the humanity of learning from one another, of being willing to say, this is what I did, this is how I encountered it, this is how I went through it. Take it as you will, maybe some nuance or some information when you have to encounter that part of your life or a part of life.
Right.
The idea that it could be a safe place,
And find meaning out of it too, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. I started to think about this because there's a similar project called, well, not similar. It's called Live Through This Photo, and it's by somebody that I've met on social media, Desiree Stage. And what she did is she interviewed people who have had suicide attempts, and then kind of cataloged these really detailed interviews, and then took their photograph after she was done interviewing them. So she has their photo after she was done interviewing them, and then the whole story. And there's this whole community around that, around people who have experienced that. And it kind of creates this definitely this you are not alone kind of feel to it. And there's a lot of peer-to-peer stuff. One of the things that I did, though, is I wrote a blog post about that, about how that could potentially be used in therapy sessions, that people shared some of their stories as a person that has survived a suicide attempt, and to kind of process that in therapy, which I think is interesting, because there's, and I share with you this in the email, that there's this whole kind of therapy called narrative therapy, where it's basically helping somebody kind of elicit their story. And in some cases, it's any really medium where storytelling is involved, and it involves telling the story, kind of defining the story, and then also telling the story in different ways too.
Right.
Through art, through art or through music or something like that too. But yeah, I was kind of thinking about, the whole idea that there are probably stories in your life that resonate with people, and it seems like that's happening though, right? People are kind of responding to your stories, and they have the opportunity.
Yes, people are responding either because of them or because gathering some amount of strength by watching someone just be open. Some of the submissions that I've received are things that I have not dealt with. People who have gone through such states of depression, and I know depression very well, but someone who's cut herself quite a great deal, or an anorexic, and then was able to put that message on top of a photo and send it to me and say that she's never shared this information before, but that it seemed like a community that be open to that and not be judgmental. For me, writing is very you know, I've been doing it since I was 9. It's my safe spot. It's my way to communicate. I'm very comfortable writing. But for some of the people that are sending me things, to write it down has already been a very emotional experience. So I feel very, very privileged, even when to say that. That's the crux of the whole project, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And yeah, that's definitely the value of it. And I think what's so interesting is sometimes from the clinical standpoint of view, as somebody who's a therapist really interested in telling people the story, I think that's the value is sometimes almost I feel like that people are more willing to tell their story to a complete stranger than they are to me as the therapist. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. We live in such a share culture, but at the same time, sharing usually just means clicking a box on a website. So to actually go a little deeper, but maybe not have that face-to-face intimacy. Yeah, I think that has been helpful for some people.
Yeah, some people really find meaning in it. I think that's really what it's about, is trying to figure out kind of what's important to you, and what stories resonate with people. Yeah, I guess that was the other thing too. So I noticed that you're kind of jumping all around. Is there any particular reason why you kind of decided to jump all around and not really do chronological or?
Yeah. Well, just first of all, based on the material, if I went chronologically, we'd be spending years listening to my science class and my brother and Eric not looking at me in choir. So
right.
these things, are charming, but they're maybe not the most engaging all of the time. But there are things. My cancer issue I really wanted to touch on, and that happened when I was 27. Some experiences of being young and moving to New York, I really wanted to touch on. There were things that still resonate even with ad from them that I just wonder responded had I had that resource myself at that point in my life. Because what I realize when I go back and read these entries is we don't know how we're going to respond to things. You can assume that if XYZ happens to me, I know how I'll react. And that's probably based off of you need to respond to a certain thing. And I go back and read some of these entries, and what I'm learning is that you have no idea how you're going to be or who you're going to be or what kind of forces are acting upon you. And there has to be that room to permit these various, maybe even bad responses to things. And I really wanted to kind of lay myself bare in that way. I had this cancer scare, I had a crazy reaction to it. And it is kind of scary to tell people that because maybe it's not the right reaction. But gosh, if someone had told me at the time, whatever reaction you have because you're going through something tremendous, that would have helped me greatly, at that stage. So I really wanted things that hopefully can be helpful or can be information or can be another side of the story. Or as I always say, there's more to the story. Nothing is simple. Discussion of some formative moments.
Right.
Not that science class was hard today isn't cute.
Right.
But I wanted to, especially in the first year, try to gather enough steam.
Yeah, so you're just kind of going through and picking out times that really have meaning.
Yeah, part of it's just thinking about the audience. What are people?
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So you're kind of thinking about things and thinking, okay, what are people going to connect with? That's cool. That's great. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about this. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that I had at this point. I wasn't sure if there were any a typical therapist question. Are there any questions you have for me?
Well, I've been for years, and I can say that probably an early seed of this project was my therapist telling me that, once upon a time we turned to books and we turned to literature to kind of know and learn different ways of living, different ways of experiencing, and I don't feel that that's as much of a resource anymore. So when I was setting up this project, part of it was to learn how to live or to witness other examples of living. And I think especially with the submissions coming in, that hopefully that's a catalog, that's something that can be built through this project. And I would love if therapists or their patients or anyone who connects to Throwback Diary will send me their stories.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. That's says it all. I think that's probably a great way to end. Where can people find Throwback Diary? And
Throwbackdiary.com. Absolutely.
okay.
I am also on Facebook as Throwback Diary. I'm on Instagram as Throwback_Diary. I'm on Twitter as Throwback Diary. But all of this is on throwbackdiary.com if you go to the share link. And Instagram has a lot of images that don't make it onto the site. So the site and Instagram together kind of give.
Okay. That's one area of social media I haven't tackled yet is Instagram and photo stuff. I haven't gotten there yet, but maybe I should start. I don't know.
Well, I'm lucky. My stuff is pretty visual. So
yes. There you go. Yes.
I've got an easy in.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your project. I think it has so much value. And again, the peer-to-peer stuff is great, and hopefully people will get out there and find meaning in your stories. And thank you for sharing your story. It's such a creative way to do it. So
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the talk.
all right, no problem.
Take care.